we tend to make fun of what we call gastronomic Jews, Jews whose primary identification to Judaism is through food, but food actually conveys a wonderful value system. And I wanted to talk to you about the kind of foods that are customary for Rosh Hashanah. There's a lot of different Jewish customs about this and why they are. But first you should know the Talmud itself says the following. Abaye said, now that you have said an omen is significant, at the beginning of each year, a person should accustom himself to eat gourds, fenugreek, leeks, and dates. So even the Talmud has foods associated with Rosh Hashanah. Most people know about apples and honey. So we've got apples and honey. So what's the basis of wanting to have apples and honey? Well, of course, in the Northern Hemisphere, apples are generally available this time of the year, so that makes sense. We talk about the apples being significant to the Garden of Eden. They're also going to be sweet. And there's a midrashic idea that they're grown on trees without any covering, and so the Jews are kind of exposed in that way, symbolic of that. Now, honey, of course, is sweet, and so we want to wish each other a sweet new year, but also the rabbi said it comes from bees, and bees can sting. They also pollinate the way Jews do with Torah, and the sting of the bee, though, can remind us about the pain of sin. So apples and honey, a basic food of the holidays. Now, Jews customarily don't eat nuts on Rosh Hashanah, and the reason is the gematria, the significance of the word egos, has the same numerical value in Hebrew letters as the word for chet, or sin. So we avoid eating nuts for that reason. I grew up with fish heads on the table, and some people have other animal heads on the table. A little bit gross for the modern palate, but the idea is we say you should be a head and not a tail. Now there are carrots that are also eaten on Rosh Hashanah and also often made into a tszimmus. Carrots, there's two different reasons. The Yiddish, and I used to have an argument at my table about this, the Yiddish speaker said it has to do with carrots in Yiddish are called meren, and meren means to increase, and so we should increase and be fruitful in the coming year. But in Hebrew, carrots are gezer, and the word for decree, like avoid the evil decree, which is a big part of the liturgy, is gezerot, and so carrots become significant for that reason. Now, brisket is a basic food now for Ashkenazim, and that's an interesting reason too. It has to do with the economic situation of the Jews. Brisket is actually not a very expensive cut of meat, although kosher briskets can be very expensive. And the Jews in Eastern Europe were poor in general and couldn't afford the choicer cuts, and so they started eating brisket. Well, brisket has become so basic now that people think it's a sacred food, and so we often eat brisket on Rosh Hashanah, the non-vegetarians. We also have round challahs, and as opposed to during the rest of the year when it's more like a oval shape, we have round challahs to represent the cycle of life, the circle of life. We used to have tszimmus, which is a concoction, various food items, fruit and carrots, and sort of a hodgepodge. We always have tszimmus. Now, we use the tszimmus as a kind of English, Yiddish expression to make a tszimmus out of something because it's so involved and there's so many details in making the tszimmus. And the Yiddish word tzim means for, and essen means eating, and so maybe it's for eating, but it comes to represent a hope for prosperity in the coming year. And of course, gefilte fish. I know a lot of people joke that there's an old bad joke about when Moses got to the Red Sea and wanted the sea to split. The carp swam up and said, "What can we do to help?" And Moses said, "Go filter fish. Go filter fish." That's where we got it. Actually not. You can always catch fish. And so Jews decided to do something interesting with it. And they would ground it up, and that's how we got to have gefilte fish as part of sort of a standard holiday and Shabbos meal. I just heard today that I live near Lake Michigan, and there was a story that there's salmon actually in the harbors now, and you can catch salmon right here. I didn't know you can catch salmon in Lake Michigan waters, but there was a story today, and so fish is certainly a basic part of and chicken soup actually goes all the way back to Maimonides, who said in his book on the cause of symptoms, he was a doctor, he said the broth of hens and other fowl neutralize body constitution. And according to him, boiled chicken soup played a role in curing leprosy and asthma. So the idea from a great doctor in the Middle Ages is that chicken soup is actually called penicillin of the body. So that's part of where that comes from. Lots of other foods that Ashkenazim are not accustomed to eating that are listed in the tradition as being basic, but that's some of the reason why we have these various foods on Rosh Hashanah.